What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one, we're going to talk a little bit about what the Colts could possibly have left to do in this free agency, kind of some things that we're looking at that, hey, these are things that are going to need to be addressed. Of course, we have the draft coming up, and what could we possibly do there? It feels like the things we're doing are all going a certain direction, and that's a different conversation. Again, this one, I'm going to continue with free agency as a lot of the top free agents have now been signed to their teams. We filled some major holes on this team, maybe the top three, right? We've talked about it on this channel, of course. Cornerback, safety, running back, two, and filling in those three spots with Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, Khalil Herbert. It feels like a dream. It feels like a dream. I'm scared that I'm going to wake up and this is all going to be fake, but this has all been, those moves are great. And I know there are a lot of people that really wanted Will Fries to come back. Obviously, a contingency of Colts fans that would have liked to see Ryan Kelly finish his career here, but nonetheless, we move on from these guys because the future is in the building and the future is now for the Colts with who they have at the offensive line. I think they could go into this draft and try to find somebody somewhere to fill a hole and to get depth. But of course, we bring back Danny Pinter and Wesley French, and bringing them back, one for center, one for offensive line. And we know Danny Pinter can play any of those three spots in the middle of the offensive line. So the Colts, obviously, they have a direction they're trying to go. They feel good about who they have, and they should. I think the offensive linemen, the rookie offensive linemen that are going to be second-year offensive linemen, I think the step up from year one to year two, a lot of guys make a big step up, and I think our guys showed enough good on tape that they can build off that, correct the things that they need to be more consistent with, and boom, they come in rolling in 2025. I think the wide receivers are good, and I don't think there's really any action you're going to see there, especially getting Ashton Doolin back. We have if we wanted to take six into every game every week, we have our six, right? Ashton Doolin and Anthony Gould being 5 and 6 in that regard. And when you look at the running backs, we're set there. And it's just at this point, of course, you have to get depth. And who else could you really bring in, right? And linebacker right now is a spot that we need to fill in. And there's somebody that I really think the Colts should go after. C.J. Mosley was let go by the Jets. A very interesting move, a guy that they seemingly are saying, hey, go somewhere where you're going to be able to try to win. Will he consider the Colts? Who knows, right? Veteran player. What could the Colts throw at him? But see, throwing something at him, throwing more at him than other teams with like a possibility to win, I think could get the job done. Right? When you look at, and I mentioned this in another video, but Destin Adams had this tweet where if you wanted to restructure contracts and you wanted to open up some cap space for DeForest Buckner, if you were to restructure his max restructure, $16.3 million. Now, how is that calculated? I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know where you find that information. I don't know how you come up with that information, to be completely honest with you. But shout out Destin Adams, somebody who gets a lot of good information. I assume he understands how to get to that number. And so again, DeForest Buckner, $16.3 million that you could open up. Now, what is our current cap space? And as I sat here and I looked through, they don't have Wesley French on this list, and they don't have Khalil Herbert on this list. The other guys that we've re-signed are back on this list. I'm looking at over the cap, and currently team cap space without those two players included, $11.824 million for the Colts going into. So we spent money. We've backloaded a couple contracts, given people more of a signing bonus. So, you know, kind of guarantees them more money, but it also helps when you do that. And again, I don't know, you know, the technicalities of it. I just know, like, being able to give more of a signing bonus, it opens up some of the cap. That restructuring of a contract will open up some of the cap, and being able to do that obviously been important for the teams that have been successful over these past few years. I think it really started with I think the Saints have been playing that game for a while, and I think the Bucs perfected it when they went and got obviously Tom Brady, and then brought a bunch of veterans in with them, and they kept restructure here, just to open up as much as possible to get as many players as possible to put around Tom Brady and go win a Super Bowl. And that's just kind of become the model. How can you figure it out? And Chris Ballard has never done it. We sat here on this channel. I've defended Chris Ballard in so many different videos, right? You go look at 2023. I defended him in so many videos. But at the end of the day, you have to look at what he's done and you have to look at what other teams have done. And he's never played the game that other teams play. Now, of course, when you're giving people more guaranteed money, more signing bonus, more money up front, the owner has to be a part of that, right? And there's definitely a contingency of media and fans that happen to believe that Jim Irsay is a part of Chris Ballard kind of being handcuffed a bit, is kind of what I've seen out there, and the decisions that he was able to make because Irsay wasn't fronting the money the way he should have. But other restructures, $8.4 million for Michael Pittman Jr., and then you have Quentin Nelson. I believe it was $32 million is what this adds up to. If you were to restructure all three of them, you add that. Not sure what Khalil Herbert's numbers are. Not sure what Wesley French's numbers are. But if you just take out, we'll just take it down to an even $7 million, right? With those two players, we'll take it down to an even $7 million. And that might even be on the high side. I might be a little on the low side. Who knows what Khalil Herbert got? But I do believe right, that 7 plus 32, boom, you have 39, and that opens you up to be able to, obviously you got to give the draft picks a certain amount of that money, and first round picks are getting big contracts and they're fully guaranteed nowadays. So you got to be able to have the money for your draft picks, and you also have to have the flexibility to be able to add depth. And again, being able to add a guy like C.J. Mosley at this point in his career, it's not going to cost you a crazy amount. But again, throwing it, we're at a point where we have to throw extra money at veterans if we want them to come in. And C.J. Mosley, in different points of his career, has had success. Obviously, being with the Jets hasn't gone well, but he's had personal success. Been a very good player. Dealt with injuries this past season, but 2023, one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL, something we sorely need. And I think having him come in and you can have a rotation, and it'd be interesting to see how Lou Anarumo would deploy these guys with their different skill sets. But you have a linebacker room all of a sudden, going to the draft and get a guy, but also, right, you get Zaire Franklin, C.J. Mosley, Jalen Carley's, Grant Stewart signs with the Lions, so he's not coming back. But I think if those are the guys that we're really looking at to be the top guys on the team, all of a sudden linebacker room looks a lot better. And again, if you can draft a good linebacker in a class that's going to have a few of them, then I think there's a possibility that we can make an impact there. And again, Lou Anarumo, with players of different skill sets, I think that's going to bode well. I think Lou Anarumo is going to have a plan for Jalen Carley's, and I'm very excited to see what happens there. But we do need to up the depth at linebacker. However we get that done, well, we got to make sure it happens. So the plan going forward really is looking at linebacker. I think defensive tackle is something that we'll get a couple of here in the draft. I think we could even get a couple, like we drafted offensive lineman 3rd round, 4th round, and in the 2024 draft, I think in 2025 we could go 2nd round, 3rd round, D tackle. It wouldn't surprise me, and then go running back in the 4th round. I think tight end, still something the Colts are going to heavily consider with the way they're building it. The options that were at tight end and we didn't get them, I think there's a plan going into the draft. Hey, whatever we got to try to do to get up and get Tyler Warren, we're going to do that. So it'll be interesting to see what the Colts decide to do. But right now, I think the plan just has to be, how do you get better at linebacker? How do you get better on the defensive line and get deeper in that regard? Do we go get any depth on the offensive line and try to get a cheap offensive lineman that we can fill in either as starter or a cheap offensive lineman to be a backup and come in and be more, up the level of play at the backup position, right? Something of the sort. But it's nice to be in a position where right now, a lot of talent on the team. We've plugged some important holes, and overall, I think we're in a position where we have options and that we can do a multitude of things. So it'll be interesting to see what we do decide to do. Of course, remember, Samson Ebicom is still on the team as an edge rusher. Just want to continue to bring that up as we go forward. And the fact that he hasn't been released seems pretty likely that he's going to be on the Colts in 2025. But we'll see what happens. Of course, with any updates that happen or any signings that happen, whatever it is, we're going to have draft content coming up pretty soon. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have notifications on so you get notified whenever we drop any content on this channel. Of course, appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.